Okay, Renee.
Okay, Mayor Allen, you may proceed.
Thank you. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to call the meeting to order? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Ma Chapman, that the special meeting of Council of the Township of Springwater of October 21, 2020 come to order at 5:05 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Due to COVID, Council is taking the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. As such, members of councils are participating electronically in the meeting, and the meeting is being live streamed. Residents are provided with the following options to listen to the meeting or to watch it. You can watch it by live at the township website, www.springwater.ca, or listen on the phone by calling 647-558-0588 and using the meeting ID 818-9944-0101 #. And that option is available during the meeting. And for those unable to watch the live stream, they're encouraged to review the meeting at their convenience by watching the video on the township's YouTube video. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest, Council? All right, seeing none. I now call upon Amy Goldsworthy, Asset Management Coordinator, with the presentation on the asset management update.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, Council, and staff. Tonight, I will be providing an update regarding the asset management program in the township. Eric St. Pierre from DM Wills will be presenting the findings of the 2020 road needs study following this presentation. First, we have a brief refresher on asset management. I will provide an update on the asset management policy and plan. Then I will update you on the citywide software project. And finally, I will discuss the importance of data collection. In many parts of Ontario, existing infrastructure is degrading faster than it is being repaired or replaced, putting services at risk. To address this issue, the province implemented Ontario Regulation 588-17, Asset Management Planning for Municipal Infrastructure, which became effective January 1st, 2018. Asset management is an ongoing process that leads to safe and sustainable services delivered in a predictable and cost-effective manner. It helps to structure information used to make strategic decisions, ensure proper functions of the township's assets, and to provide citizens with services. Basic information required for asset management includes the following: what do we own? Where is it located? What condition is it in? What is the level of service, current and desired, that the asset provides? What is the asset's remaining useful life or service life? What assets are the most critical, and what is the level of risk to their function and sustainability? What do we need to sustain the services provided by each asset? When do we need to do it by? And what is the associated cost? Asset management is not a standalone plan. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt. May I ask you to share your screen so that the presentation can be shown?
Sharing?
No.
Is that working now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'll go back to that slide. Asset management is not a standalone plan. Asset management plans, software, and data collection support holistic and integrated asset management practices. Asset management is a team effort from both council and staff. Staff needs to be able to provide accurate and meaningful information to allow council to make informed decisions for direction and allocation of resources, so staff may manage risk and maintain the expected level of resources to residents. As discussed, asset management is mandated for Ontario municipalities in OREG 588-17, Asset Management Planning for Municipal Infrastructure, which is under the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act. Municipalities are required to prepare a strategic asset management policy, which is to include any of the municipality's goals, policies, or plans supported by the asset management plan. Municipalities are also required to prepare an asset management plan, which must include current and proposed levels of service for each asset category, lifecycle management, and financial strategy. Our current asset management plan is from 2014. Staff are currently working on revising the plan to be compliant with the regulation for 2021, which focuses on core infrastructure. The policy from 2018 is also currently being revised. Both will be brought forward to Council for approval prior to July 1st, 2021. Core infrastructure is considered roads, bridges and culverts, stormwater infrastructure, water infrastructure, and wastewater infrastructure. So again, those are the asset classes to be included in the plan by 2021. All other municipal infrastructure assets, such as buildings, are to be included in the plan by 2023. The citywide software implementation is now complete. This doesn't mean that the work is done. Maintaining and updating the system is an ongoing process. There are two main components of the software: Maintenance Manager and Asset Manager. Maintenance Manager is being used for tracking service requests, work orders, and route patrol. We are close to over 2,500 work orders since the end of January. We have recently started using Maintenance Manager as well for health and safety inspections, which is allowing staff to track deficiencies found in those inspections. We are also in the process of distributing tablets to outside staff, which will allow them to create, modify, and close work orders in the field. Asset Manager module acts as a complete asset registrar. Data pertaining to assets, such as findings from the road needs study, structure inspections, and CCTV inspections, are currently being added to the system. This module will be used for determining projected levels of service, including condition and risk, and allow for financial planning. The capital planning and analysis portion will allow us to develop long-term financial plans based on multiple scenarios and prioritize projects based on life cycle events, risk, condition, and levels of service. This pie chart is an example of one of the many reports we can pull from Maintenance Manager. This specific chart breaks down the different work orders in relation to paved roads. For example, 177 work orders have been made for cold patch and 14 for signage replacement out of the total of 791. This is a graph from the Asset Manager module. I just want to stress that this graph is purely for example. It depicts the projected condition of roads based solely on age and assumes no life cycle events or current conditions. As you can see, by 2068, if there is no preventative maintenance or rehabilitation activities, almost all of the roads within the township would be in very poor condition. Once the information from the road needs study is added to the program, the graph will change as other information such as service type and condition will be included. Asset data, both in-house and through third-party consultants, is collected in-house and through third-party consultants. This information is used to make decisions on the life cycle, maintenance, and rehabilitation activities of the asset. The data, such as results from CCTV inspections for sewer mains, is now being uploaded into Citywide for both retention and to provide information on the condition of the asset. Some of these inspection activities are mandatory, such as the biannual inspections for structures. Data and information collected in these studies, such as the road needs study, are all vital to managing assets. This concludes the presentation on asset management. Any questions or comments regarding this presentation or asset management can be directed to CAO Schmidt, Director Coleman, or myself following the presentation from DM Wills.
Thank you, Ms. Goldsworthy. And now we call upon Eric St. Pierre and David Bosnall from DM Wills with the 2020 Roads Needs Study update, please.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Got that mute?
Can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. David Bonzo actually won't be presenting today. We were told that the OSIM presentation wouldn't be going forward, so it'll just be me today. If I can just share my screen. So a Hello, everyone. My name is Eric St. Pierre, as previously stated. I project engineer at Wills. This summer, we sent our field inspector to conduct the inspections for the 2020 road need study update for the Township of Springwater. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to do an overview of the road need study methodology and activities, a summary of the township's road infrastructure, a summary of the findings and the budget considerations, and the road work prioritization considerations. So we applied two methodologies to this study. It's a combination of the road need study methodology and MTO's PCI methodologies. The road need study methodology was developed in 1991. It's contained in the MTO's inventory manual for municipal roads. It's a holistic approach to the road needs. It doesn't just look at the surface condition. It looks at the road base. It looks at the surface condition. It looks at surface widths. It looks at the surface type. It looks at drainage. It looks at the alignment. It looks at maintenance demand. And it identifies critical deficiencies in the now 1 to 5 and 6 to 10 year needs. The overall condition rating assigned for each road base is each road segment is based on all those factors, which can lead to some sometimes leads to odd situations where if you just applied the MTO inventory manual, you would have a road has a very poor condition rating, but it looks like it's in really good shape, and that would be because it has either a narrow width or poor alignment or something else that you can't really fix unless you were to rebuild the entire road. But we've also incorporated PCI methodology. Oh, sorry, road need study methodology continued. And also the inventory manual also looks at the roadside environment and the class. So whether it's rural, semi-urban, urban, or local, collector, arterial. And then the roads are prioritized based on the condition rating and the volume. And the traffic volumes that we used in this study were extrapolated from 2017. PCI methodology is a little bit different. It's purely a visual inspection of the road surface. So what we're looking for, it's a combination of a visual inspection of the road surface and the ride condition rating. So what we're looking at is visual defects like cracking widths and frequency, rutting, potholes and patching, that sort of thing. And that gives a PCI measurement, which is out of 100, which is purely condition based. So a quick summary of Springwater's road needs or road network. You have a good mix of surface types. You've got about 200 kilometers of hot mix, 130 kilometers of surface treatment, and 100 kilometers of gravel. This is fairly typical for townships similar to Springwater. And most of your roads are still in the rural, still considered rural. I understand that Springwater is a growing community, and that might not be true in the near future, but currently 3/4 of your roads are rural and only 20 kilometers are urban and 90 kilometers are semi-urban. From our study, we found the average structural adequacy, which is from the inventory manual, was 14.7 out of 20. This represents a road that is in pretty good shape. You might be looking at overlaying a road that was rated 14.7 out of 20, or you might be looking at shave and pave, something like that. And the PCI of your hardtop road is 78.5, which pretty much tells us the same thing. The capital improvements, this is from the inventory manual, the now 1 to 5 and 6 to 10 year needs. We identified 145 kilometers with these needs, and we would estimate you have to spend 23.3 million over 10 years to address all of them. Of course, what research has shown time and again is that only fixing your poor roads generally does not lead to optimal budgets or budget outflows. It's much cheaper to spend that $1 in rehabilitation just as a road begins to lose, it starts to deteriorate, rather than wait for it to become in poor shape and spend $4 to $5 on complete rehab or complete reconstruction if it's bad enough. And so before I told you that the average road was about 14.7 out of 20 for your network. If you look at the distribution of those roads, however, it paints a slightly more nuanced story. So what we consider the now needs, according to the inventory manual, would be everything rated as 7, 6, or 7 or below. And you have a decent chunk of roads in the now needs. Your 1 to 5 year needs are considered ratings between 8 and 11. And you also have a decent chunk there. And your 6 to 10 year needs are 12 to 14. And you have a decent chunk there. So if you don't, so even though your average structural adequacy is quite high, you do have a significant amount of roads that are displaying a need for some sort of improvement. And if you look at the roads that are currently in good shape, they're well distributed throughout that range. So you're really you're in a good position, not to just, you're looking at this, you should be spending a decent amount of money fixing your poor roads, but you should also be looking at addressing the roads that are in good shape, conducting overlays or shade and paves to kind of to extend their lifespan so that they don't fall into these categories. So a preservation management approach. So we look at how to budget for that. We look at a dedicated road resurfacing program. Normally you'd like to see putting or addressing hot mix roads on a 20-year cycle, surface treatment on a 7-year cycle, and gravel on a 3-year cycle. Based on those that high level analysis, we would estimate that your annual road resurfacing budget, this is not addressing your capital needs, this is just keeping your good roads good, should be about $3.7 million to be sustainable. On top of that, we also think you have enough of a network, or a large enough network to consider a preservation management budget as well. This would be your micro-surfacing, slurry seal, crack sealing, and we think you should be spending about $700K a year doing that. And we also spending money on roads is not just, you don't just want to spend money on the pavement, you want to make sure everything about the road is good. I believe I looked at your, I think it was last year's budget, and you do have a dedicated roadside maintenance program right now, but I think your target is only 10 kilometers of ditching a year. Is that correct?
Thank you. Yeah, that is our target.
What we really want to see is that you're doing your ditching or you're brushing and ditch clean out on a 10-year cycle. So you should ideally be doing more like, what was it? You should really be looking at doing 40 kilometers of ditching and brushing a year, not 10. So the prioritization of roadworks that we use for this study considers the traffic volume and the road condition. It's a fairly simple formula. It's as displayed. It just considers 0.2 times 100 minus your condition rating times the cubic root of your traffic level, AADT, plus 40. Now, this isn't really this is a tool to give you an idea if you have a busy road that's in okay shape versus a road that's in really poor shape that doesn't have much traffic, which road is a higher priority to fix. And it doesn't always address the worst first. It kind of gives that a bump to your higher traffic, your arterial roads, your higher traffic roads. Yeah. So, in summary, we conducted the road need study based on inventory manual method and PCI methodology. So it's a holistic approach plus that very technical distress manifestation survey. Your average road is in good shape. However, you have a broad distribution of road conditions. Ideally, you'd be targeting your resurfacing budget for $3.7 million a year overall. And ideally, you'd be spending, or you'd be touching up 145 kilometers of structural needs in the next 10 years. We also recommend a dedicated road maintenance program to extend the service life, including sealing, brushing, and ditch cleanout. This is just for your information. This is an example of kind of a preservation management approach. You can see the municipality, just 3 lines here, or three, I guess, approaches to this. This is the simple simulation we've conducted. The red, or the municipality represented by the red, is taking it only reconstruct the really poor roads. And you can see that over time, not only are they spending more money, but their average condition rating is actually lower than the municipalities that either have regular resurfacing or even the ones that go above and beyond the preservation management approach style. So what does that mean in total? Just to give you an idea, if you were to focus purely on your capital improvements, you would be spending $2.3 million a year fixing 145 kilometers of road, versus your resurfacing and preservation, $3.7 million a year to maintain your entire network. Okay. I see someone holding up a yes card.
Okay, I was just waiting to see whether you were finished. So we'll go to questions, comments. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. What's the purpose for you for this diagram here? What is it you're trying to put across to us here?
I'm really trying to stress that you get more bang for your buck for spending money on resurfacing and preservation versus waiting for a road to deteriorate to the point where you have to reconstruct. So if you look at the network that you currently have, if you look at our baseline recommendations, you'd be spending $23 million keeping or bringing 145 kilometers back to good repair, versus spending $3.7 million a year keeping all your roads in good shape. So this is just the cost. There's no such thing as a free ride. If you ignore the road needs today, they'll come back and bite you tomorrow. And this is just kind of illustrating that. Your municipality is not in a terrible position. This isn't to imply that you have a terrible network. It's just this is a realistic funding level, or what we would consider a reasonable funding level.
Eric, this particular page, you said 23.3 million over 10 years, my understanding, to maintain or to fix. This is confusing to me, at least. Can you define to fix versus to maintain, and which you're recommending? The 2.3 on the top, the blue, is what you said, 23.3 million over 10 years, or 2.3 million per year. That would be, I'm getting confused, fix versus maintain.
Sorry, I'm not actually quite hearing everything you're saying. It's a little bit quiet. Let me see if I can turn up my volume.
Can you hear me, Clerk Ainsworth?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
It's probably on my side. There it is. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to...
Can you hear me any better now, Eric?
No, I'm still... there should be a volume control on Zoom. I can hear Amy fine. It's just a little bit quieter, and it's not...
Mr. Mayor, can I speak?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to you, members of council, I don't want to necessarily speak on behalf of the consultant, but from my interpretation of this, I think what they're stating is that ideally, if we had all the funds available to the township, that would be implementing a program that would cost roughly $3.7 million per year, which essentially looks after our full network, which includes the preservation piece or the asset management piece. However, whereas the 2.3 million would only essentially allocate or fix 145 kilometers of your network. So I guess the better strategy would be to spend the additional $1.4 million each year to be able to look after your whole network, as opposed to just the 2.3 to deal with 145 kilometers, if I understand the slide correctly.
So if we spent 3.7 per year, that would mean there would not be capital improvements included in the 2.3 per year?
3.7 million per year would be just your resurfacing and preservation. It would not include capital improvements. If you spent your $2.3 million a year in capital improvements plus $3.7 million a year on your resurfacing, we would expect you to have to just spend about $3.7 million a year at the end of the 10 years.
Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I don't know who is, maybe CEO Schmidt can, but off the top of your head, what's our budget for road resurfacing for the year? So that's one question I'd like to ask.
CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd have to actually double check that. I'm going off the top of my head here. I'm just looking at the total road budget, capital budget. I would say we're probably, and Director Coleman can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it might be in around the range of 2 million or so.
Yeah.
And that is for maintenance and capital improvements, or just maintenance, Jeff?
I believe that would be for the capital improvement piece.
Director Coleman, do you have anything to add to that to clarify?
Thank you, Marilyn. Through you to council. Using Jeff's number, that would include our structural upgrades as well. And then I guess resurfacing and preservation in terms of new surface treatment, or mill and pave, or pulverize and pave. And then I believe there's we do have additional expenditures for some capital reconstructions. For example, this year, Lawrence Street would be a capital reconstruction where we're doing water, sewer, and the road surface. And Doran Road, for example, would be one of these resurfacing and preservation type jobs where, well, that one's a little more extended as well. We're doing some stormwater there. But we did earlier this year, we did the 8th, for example, we did a single surface treatment on the 8th. That would come under the resurfacing and preservation piece. Does that kind of clarify the two different types?
It helps. It helps. Further comments, questions, council? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, and then back to Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you. And I guess just for my own clarification, so what I'm seeing on the screen now is a total of $6 million that we would need to spend annually to keep up to date with the roads need, with our road needs, whether a portion of it is a capital, portion of it goes to our resurfacing and preservation. And my question then, the 2 million that we spoke to as if that's for our budget for 2020, is that incorporating both, like you were saying, the capital and the resurfacing? So currently we're spending approximately $2 million, whereas this study is suggesting that we would annually need to spend 6 in order to bridge the infrastructure gap.
I'll look to either Director Coleman or CAO Schmidt to answer.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Just thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just looking at the 2020 capital budget, And so under urban road reconstruction, we have approximately just over $3 million projected for 2020. Then we have another category called resurfacing and rehabilitation, which we have essentially another just under $1 million. We have some gravel road conversions to hardtop, which was another 600,000. So, 6 million. You have probably about close to 4 million, I guess, in those categories, give or take. I'm not quite sure how they fit into these buckets, to be quite honest with you. That maybe Director Coleman or Eric is able to comment on that.
Sorry, if I may speak. The resurfacing bucket is just your, we just account for your general replacing the surface layer. The road needs bucket would be accounting for when you have to actually replace the, when you have to do work underneath the road, the pavement structure. So if you count, I don't know, like your urban reconstruction budget, I assume that's some deep treatments where you're actually replacing some granulars. Whereas that would be captured in the capital needs. What we consider resurfacing needs would just be either like shave and pave or overlays, something like that effect. Does that answer your question?
Follow on, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you to Mr. St. Pierre. Is it possible, and I'm sorry to ask if you can move closer to your computer or to the microphone? Unfortunately, I was not able to hear what you had provided as an answer there. My apologies.
Is this better?
No.
Were you hearing me fine in the presentation?
To the same level here, yes. It was easier to follow because I could also read what you were saying at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, can you just summarize what you just said, Mr. St. Pierre?
So the road needs bucket in this report considers any treatment where you have to do more than just fix the pavement, where you have to go add some granulars, do some dig outs. The resurfacing bucket would just be maintaining that asphalt layer, maintaining that surface treatment layer.
Okay, Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was listening in. Unfortunately, I did have some issues. I'm on board. I was just curious to know, Mr. St. Pierre, with respect to these figures here in the 10-year budget, I guess the first question I have is this does not take into consideration any type of growth. This is based on our current infrastructure. That would be my first question. My other question actually deals with the road needs study itself. Our last road needs study was, I believe, in 2017, with the report being delivered in the fall of 2017. And it was a fairly comprehensive report. So I'm just curious to know, is this the same type of report that you've undertaken right now, or is yours, for lack of a better term, lighter in nature than that comprehensive report was? And how often should we be doing these types of road need studies?
Mr. St. Pierre?
So through the mayor, to tell you the truth, I did read the 2017 report. I didn't pour over the details. I understand the 2017 report. One thing they did do that we didn't do under this study, that wasn't part of the scope, was they provided projected condition levels based on various surface or based on various budget levels, which wasn't my understanding of the scope of this road need study. So I guess it's not that it doesn't have the same projections. It does have it is essentially it does capture the same information though. So I suppose it's lighter on the projection side, but it would be very similar on the assessment side.
Okay, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I didn't want to get off topic here because we're talking about road resurfacing, but it's basically the same thing to concur with what Councillor Cabral is saying, the same thing we've heard in 2017 is look after the good roads and forget about, well, just keep looking after them. And the fact of the matter is we've only got so much money to go around. And this year, even we're going to really have to roll up our sleeves because of the COVID. Anyways, hopefully we'll get that behind us. But we ended up getting some roads resurfaced to not hardtop, but the slurry and that on it. And we need to keep moving that and get that gravel road slowly converted over. But I think at the end of the day, we've only got so much money, and you know, I think we do a pretty good job managing it. Having said that, the chart there that you had prior to that, I had to step out for a minute, but when I was reading it earlier, you had a chart there about, you had it all sliced up about ditching and doing shoulder work and all that. I'd like to know what roads you've ditched this year and what shoulders were cut down. I wanted to be able to scope down and dig down so that I can go down a road and say, okay, we did the ditching there. We cut the shoulder roads down on it. Like we did the 10th there earlier this year, and we did the back 6 west of Eagle Road. I don't know if any of the shoulders were done on that or anything. So I'd like this to come before council so that we could see that, so we could tell people, not stuck in a chart somewhere. If you can take that back and pass that on to staff, it'd be nicely. Thank you.
Is that something, Director Coleman, that you want to comment now, or that's something that would be good for a report in future, more comprehensive?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Allen. We can, I can have the operations staff go through and list the locations that have been completed to date this year. And then we will, I guess probably the best option is to send that as an information report to council.
That would be good. Thank you. Councillor Cabral, I think you had a follow on. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess my question was a bit lengthy. There was 3 points to it. I guess the other one was, and I think you might have answered this one with respect to the developmental aspect of increased infrastructure, not necessarily that this is addressing that. But my other question was in respect of how often the road needs studies should be carried out in respect of you know, assessing the roadways, their physical nature, and you know, what needs doing where, and is there any opportunity for improvement? So I guess that was the other part of the question. I just want to know, seeing as the last one was done in 2017, and now it looks like we've undertaken another one in 2020. So I just kind of wanted to get a handle from you. What's the normal practice or best practice for time intervals between these studies? Because every time a study is undertaken, it does take on a new flavor and a new direction, and it lays out quite often different priorities in the 6 to 10 year plan that they usually formulate.
Mr. St. Pierre?
Yeah, so generally we recommend doing these studies every 3 to 5 years. So the 2017 study, so this is the 2020 study is 3 years after the 2017 study. I think 5 years would be the upper limit. If you're doing it more, if you're doing it less often than every 5 years, you can set yourself up for trouble that way, especially for your asset management planning. But doing it more than every 3 years would probably be overkill. Some municipalities do kind of mini updates every year, so they don't assess all the roads in 1 year. They'll go out and they'll inspect a third of their network every year, and they'll just keep it rolling. But generally doing like I guess a full top-down road need study every 3 to 5 years is the most common.
Thank you.
Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was just wondering, maybe this is towards Director Coleman, if we could get a list of those roads that are in those categories, the now 1 to 5 and 6 to 10, and maybe if possibly for budget, just so we can have a look at that to see what roads are what? Is that possible?
Director Coleman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. So once the consultant has finished their report, the final report, which would include all the roads and the various classifications that they've given them, the various gradings that they've given them, and their recommendations, all that report will come to council to be accepted. I think that it was done under this council for the 2017, and it comes as typically as an information report, and then the consultant's report would be attached to that with all the information. Whether it comes before budget or not will be dependent on when we receive their final report.
But if it didn't come before budget, it would be there as part of the budget package, I presume.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. So I do have their draft spreadsheets, and I've used their draft as well as the approved 2017 road needs study to create a draft 10-year proposed capital budget that you will see in less than a month, I guess, for review. So I've tried to take both and to, I guess, kind of merge the two together to get the best possible budget that we can without any significant changes. Obviously, there are significant changes, but it's certainly not, I ripped up the last one and started over. It's definitely, hopefully, a nice combination of the two.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And through you, when this report does come back to council, the slide where it showed the graph indicating the ratio, the 1 to 4 or 5 ratio of expenditures or financial implications, is there a possibility to have more in depth on that? Meaning when or if council should choose not to invest in our road maintenance in this direction, the implications financially?
Are you referring to the slide that's up there now, Deputy Mayor?
No, it was a previous graph, and it showed, you know, for your $1, it's if you invest as it's highlighted, this one here, and then it says that if not, the cost will be. So if you wait until, obviously, if you only address the roads that are in needing rehabilitation,
Right.
rather than reconstruction. So if there's just more information on how that ratio was, because it is important to me to understand the implications of not investing in our infrastructure gap. And then secondly, it was brought up about road, our gravel conversion. And if there could be an indication also in this as to gravel conversion, because it continues to be an area of interest and often contention, just to have the consultant's perspective on that. As we move forward, I do know that our neighbors on Oro Medonte took one approach and are rapidly taking another, actually pulling up their pavement. So just highlighting those two areas as we get that brought forward to council would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I don't know if this has come up. I don't think it has, but as I recall, there was a motion back in, I don't know if it was this spring or the spring before, asking that the Director of Public Works provide a prioritized list of how to implement reintegrating the gravel roads conversions back into the capital budget. I'm just wondering if we're going to see that, because I don't recall seeing anything along those lines in the budget that came before us last year. But as I recall it, there was a motion to that effect, but I could be wrong. I don't think anything came forward from it. I'm wondering if along the lines of what the deputy mayor's brought up, whether or not that's going to be something that we're going to see in this budget as well.
Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So yeah, we'll have to meet with Mr. St. Pierre and his staff, and I think get their recommendations on how to move forward with that. I guess what we'll probably request are various options of, I guess, options of what to do and how to do it and the cost of that. And then I guess the implications of not doing those things.
Okay. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. While we're talking about the study, I'd like to know how much we paid for the study to have it done. And, you know, the question is, we have patrolmen that are running these roads all winter long, year round, working it. Why can't the study be done in-house? And that's a question I throw out there that I'd like to see answered and talked about further. Maybe not tonight, but I'm sure during the budget process. But I would like to know how much we paid for this study to tell us something that we already know. But at the end of the day, we only got so much money to deal with. And if memory serves me right, if we go to the taxes, for every $100,000 that we go to raise in taxes, that's a 1% increase. And, you know, that's something that we're going to have to take a hard look at today, this year, especially the climate that we're in and the economic climate due to the COVID. So, but I would like to know if they can get back to, I'm sure the rest of council would like to know, I can't speak for them, what we pay for this study. Thank you.
CEO Schmidt, is that something you can comment at this point?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I don't have that information right in front of me. I want to say that the budget, I believe, was around 50,000. I'm just not sure what the actual RFP came in at. I'm not sure if Director Coleman has that information or not, but 50,000 rings a bell, but I could be wrong.
Thank you.
Director Coleman, do you know that number?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I don't know the figure offhand. I do know that we budgeted 50,000 for the road needs study. We also budgeted 20,000 for the structural assessments. They were in the RFP together, and it was the final bid did come in under budget. I believe there was likely an information report that went to council on the award, but I can resurrect that and email it to council so they have that information.
Thank you.
And if I may, Mayor Allen, if I can continue on with Councillor Ritchie's second point about the patroller.
Thank you.
Our patroller just in September just attended a road inspection course on how to carry out not so much a road needs study, but a surface review. So our goal moving forward would be to do some mini updates using our patroller, and then every 3 to 5 years, depending of course on our growth and what our infrastructure looks like, to do the larger update with a consultant.
I have a question. Did you have a follow-on, Councillor Ritchie?
I just that's good news. That to me, that's good news. Nobody knows those roads better than the patroller that runs them all the time. You want to know what goes on, go talk to them, go talk to the people that are grading it. They can tell you that's their livelihood. And I think that's good news to be moving in that direction. So thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Ms. Goldsworthy, sorry. How is the asset management program funneling in and incorporating the information that's coming from the roads needs study, or how will they be on a granular, deep road by road basis? And what will be the time frame of having an updated roads assessment incorporated fully in our asset management program?
Mr. Mayor, we're just awaiting the final draft of the road needs study, and then I will upload that information into Citywide, the asset management module, and then shortly after that, we'll have a report.
I would be interested, and I'm sure other councillors would be interested in the near future in a demonstration of this program, and you could show us how you're building it, what's there now, and what's going to be there when it's along the different stages. So can you confer with CAO Schmidt and maybe make that happen for council's education? I don't know whether it be part of the budget process or separately, but I would think that that would be valuable for council, because we increasingly are going to have to get on top of and stay on top of asset management using this software.
Yes, I can definitely talk to Director Coleman and CEO Schmidt about that.
Thank you. Other comments, questions, council? Yes, CEO.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just to go back on the costs. So I was able to find out that the roads need study along with the bridge assessment was just under $27,000. Roads need study equated to just under 23,000 of that, with the structural assessment being the remainder.
Thank you.
So, Mr. St. Pierre, you made the comment about dedicated roadside maintenance, 10-year cycle. Can you go back to that slide, please, and just expand upon that point?
So ideally, brushing and ditching helps keep, well, it's good for safety, and also helps keep water out of the road base. If you don't keep up on your ditching, you can get premature failures in the road base, which will reflect upwards and affect your pavements. I believe I saw on a document from Springwater that your target was 10 kilometers a year. Does that ring a bell, or is that incorrect?
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yeah, so one of our key performance indicators is ditching, and the goal has been 10 kilometers per year. Unfortunately, staff have several other priorities on their plate. So 10 kilometers has been the goal this year. We haven't met that, partially because of COVID and partially because of lack of operators. I think that's something that we'll probably discuss, certainly when we get into the Public Works operating budget. As you're aware, we do have a new piece of equipment this year that has a brushing head on it. And we have an equipment operator who has been carrying out that activity since the midsummer, since we received the piece of equipment, and he's been trained. Unfortunately, he's the same operator that operates our excavator. So it kind of is, we can only do one or the other at one time.
So are we down one person then from what we had previously budgeted?
No, thank you, Mayor Allen. We're not down staff, we're just up equipment. And as you'll recall, we purchased the tractor this year for grass cutting and for brushing and for high shoulder removal. We got all three attachments, one through a replacement, and then the high shoulder removal equipment, I believe, was the modernization efficiency funds. So that it works better than we thought it would. So it's a matter of now allocating bodies to these and to be more dedicated to these activities.
Now, Mr. St. Pierre, I thought I'd heard there's a 10-year covered on a 10-year basis. I thought I'd heard you say versus 40 kilometers of ditching.
So I just had to look at my notes to get the number of, you have about 40 or 400 kilometers of roads with open drainage. So if you're going to touch, ideally we would say you should touch every ditch on a 10-year basis, and your target should be closer to 40 kilometers a year.
And Director Coleman, what do you think, given COVID and the human resource challenges, do you think we've accomplished in the way of kilometers in 2020?
2020, the last number I saw was 6 kilometers. there was more ditching planned. Whether they'll get to that 10 or not will depend on, obviously, on staffing and weather.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other,
If I may just, sorry, I wasn't quite finished with my answer.
yes, thank you.
You may, if you are touching up on 40 kilometers a year and you're ditching on a 10-year basis, you're going to find that the ditching work is not as difficult if you get better production rates. My only concern with the 10 kilometers a year target is that will touch your entire network every 40 years. And by that point, the ditches are most likely filled in. Just to finish my comment.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you to Mr. St. Pierre. Comments like that is essentially what I was hoping for more of in the report. And I understand that the scope of the work is here now. But information like that, saying that we are currently doing 4 kilometers of ditching and we need to be doing 10 and things, more of a comparison. I'm very interested. I mean, our council is we put money aside every year into an infrastructure renewal program. But I think as we move forward, we need to know whether it's, better money spent today to address the now problems. So is there an opportunity then, I guess through you to Mr. St. Pierre and CEO Schmidt, as council moves forward between this budget and the next, to better understand our infrastructure gap? Because from what I'm seeing here, I mean, if we're only spending 3 million annually, and this is suggesting that we need to be spending 6, I think we need to take a serious look at it. And also, if we're going to be continuing to purchase equipment but not hire or allocate funds for staff to actually operate that equipment, I think we need to take a really hard look at this moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay. Any other comments then? All right, I will ask for a mover and seconder to confirm and adopt the proceedings.
Mayor Allen?
Yes, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. We do have 2 motions, one to accept the presentation by Ms. Goldsworthy, and then a second motion to accept the presentation by Mr. St. Pierre. So those 2 need to be dealt with prior to.
Thank you for that. And thank you for the presentation. So the first one, mover and seconder for the asset management presentation, please. Councillor Moore, Councillor Ma Chapman, that the presentation regarding the township's asset management update provided by Amy Goldsworthy, asset management coordinator, be received. All those in favor? That is carried. And a mover and a seconder to receive the roads needs presentation. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore, that the presentation regarding the 2020 roads needs study update provided by Eric St. Pierre from DM Wills be received. All those in favor? That is carried.
Mr. St. Pierre, may I ask that you stop sharing your screen, please?
Yes. Sorry about that.
Thank you again, Mr. St. Pierre. Okay, clerk, to proceed. Mover and the seconder to confirm and adopt proceedings, please. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore, that the bylaw 220-083 to confirm and adopt proceedings of council at the special meeting held on October 21, 2020 listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and the clerk. All those in favor? And finally, a mover and seconder to adjourn this meeting. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ritchie, that the special meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 6:05 p.m. to meet again in a regular meeting on October 21, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. See you next meeting.